Actually, before we look at that, how the hell did we get here?
I recently had the fantastic idea to use an OEM stereo facia from my 350Z in order to power a modern head unit that was hidden away behind it. And amongst the thousands of comments and emails that I got from you guys telling me how you would have done it if you'd had that frankly fantastic idea, which you didn't, so shut up, was Pioneer saying, hey Andy, we've just released a new head unit that looks 90's but sounds modern. Do you want to give it a go? And yeah, of course I do. But that means I've got to rip all this out because I now have to fabricate something new. Because as good as the Pioneer stereo looks, it does come with a, not problem, but a complication.
So if you haven't seen one yet, this is the new Pioneer head unit. It's the SXT-C10PS. And it's very cool. Looks just like the stereos did in the late 90s, early noughties. Got a fake tape deck, which has actually got a USB and a 3.5mm input jack. But an age-old problem that lots of people have dealt with over the years. Single DIN stereo. Double DIN hole to put it in. Now, lots of people, when doing this kind of stuff, they use one of these. This is like an adapter that allow you to put a single DIN in, and then the other space is just a cubby or something. But we're not most people. Now, when we were building the menu system for all my digital gauges, I was looking at putting the screen with the menu up in this little sunglasses thing, which I use to hold these nice smelling things, but it didn't quite work out. So instead, I'm going to use this second DIN space to create a fold out and pop up screen. The only problem with that right now is I have no concept of how to do that. I guess we'll find out during the course of this video. That's the excitement, I guess. Now, there are obviously a different ton of mechanisms you could use to make this thing come out and then go up. And I've been trying to think about the way that's the simplest, but also is going to be like reliable and controllable. Because if we think about it, we've got, let's say, the stereo here, and then we've got the other unit directly underneath it. And what we need is this section here to come outwards to a point and then rotate up. So it ends up, let's say, like that with the screen on it. And really the difficulty is the upwards motion. Moving something in and out, there's plenty of ways we could do that. You could use a scissor, oh, very crude, but a scissor mechanism. So you pull this part in and out with a servo or something like that, and then that causes this to move forwards and backwards, but I don't think that's particularly reliable, and I don't think that's going to be a good way of doing it. You could use an actuator. The problem is with an actuator, though, is they tend to be really big, so you get something like that, but it has to have that inside, which then expands all the way out here. So considering I want about 10 or 12 centimeters of movement, that means this thing's total length is going to be at least around 30 centimeters, which is going to be way too big, as I don't have that kind of space. So the one I've kind of sort of landed on is using a couple of these linear rails for the stabilization process. So we've got a couple of those, and then use something like this with a carriage on it. So this is a threaded rod, which we can then put between a couple of things that hold it, which allow it to rotate, and when it rotates, a carriage of some form will move up and down. So I can, I think, make this relatively small, but like the front of the screen kind of attaches to these, but not quite. It's like behind them like this. And then I'm just trying to visualize this in my head as we go. Then there's a a pivot that's in front of the end. So when this gets to the end, or near to the end, that pivot kicks in here. So the rest of the forwards motion doesn't move this forwards and backwards. It's stopped by the hinge. And then the rest of this motion does the rotation at the end. There's something in that, I think. This is my front runner at the moment. What I really need to do is put this into a 3D model and see how it works in theory. So with all of my pieces 3D printed, the big enclosure bits, the lids, just everything, let's just start putting it together and see basically what mistakes I made in this first iteration, because there's bound to be some. Hopefully they're minor though. So I've got to kind of figure out what order I'm going to do this in. I think I need to start by putting the belt into... Oh, you gotta be kidding me! The first piece I go to install, somehow I haven't made it big enough. It doesn't fit in there. Which means I've got to reprint the biggest piece, which takes like 10 hours. Well, I guess we're doing this tomorrow. Okay, so let's try that again. With a new piece that fits. There's obviously going to be a few things that are tricky here. I think the biggest one, though, is figuring out what order do I actually put everything together. Because there's some things that have to happen before some other things. Let's just figure it out. You know what? There are a few small issues, but overall, I think for a prototype to show that the movement and the mechanisms are going to work, this is pretty good. It's actually quite a nice movement, and that's even considering this is in FDM printing, which has got, you know, worse tolerances than we're going to have in the final thing. The PCB lives in its little space on the bottom, so we've got good access to that. The one thing that is going to make this better is being able to print it in a higher quality. So like now, when this moves, there's a slight rub, and you'll get rid of that by printing it in a higher quality. It really needs to be done in SLA. Fortunately, tomorrow, something's arriving on a pallet that's, I think, going to be pretty good for doing this.
That was a lot of heavy boxes, but now we have some really cool stuff to take a look at. This collection of boxes has been very kindly sent to me by Formlabs, and I know what you're thinking. Oh my gosh, in there must be a really cool 3D printer. You'd be wrong, because in that big box is just the finishing kit. In this big box is also actually not the 3D printer. This is the curing station, which you can see right there has already been unpacked. So if that's how big the curing station is, how big is the machine? It's pretty goddamn big. This massive new beautiful machine is the Formlabs 4L, and the L obviously meaning large, and it is a very large format SLA printer, which means when we're in here and when I finally get it all put together, we're going to be able to print very large format, super accurate stuff in a variety of resins. We're talking ultra tough, transparent, flexible, silicone, just loads of really cool things that just aren't possible on any other machine. Now, I'm very, very aware that this machine is moving away a little bit from something a hobbyist might have. This is moving into the realms of kind of professional industrial format machine, which you can actually still get in your home. There is this one, and there is the non-L version, the 4, very, very similar, but on a smaller bed size. This one has the big bed, which means I can print 35 by 20 by 35 centimeters, roughly. If you want an idea in your head how big that is, you can print a steering wheel in one go. So using this, I think I can make a fascia plate in a finish that's going to look basically exactly like the Pioneer. Matte black, basically negligible on the print lines, might need a little bit of post-processing, but yeah, that's the next job, is to set up and test this, because I haven't done anything with it yet. We also have, like I say, the cure machine, which is basically like a big UV microwave that you put your prints in after you wash them. The wash machine is coming, but it was out of stock when Formlabs sent me this. So that'll be coming in the next couple of weeks. So for now, I'm just going to have to wash things by hand, but we will be taking a look at that in a lot of future videos, because this is going to have so much good use. Very looking forward to it. So let's get this thing set up and then see what it can do. Let's see if we can make that fascia look like the Pioneer one with very little effort. So it's taken a little bit of time just to dial in my settings and get everything really nice. But the prints that are coming off the Form 4L now are admittedly really, really good. When I compare them to an ABS print off an FDM printer, which is what I would usually use for making car parts, the difference in the clarity and the quality is pretty noticeable. And you really start to see the difference in things like the overhangs, where the support structure is really visible on the FDM one, and it's just not there. And I think for this task in particular, this is definitely going to be
the way to go for the majority of the part. I put this enclosure in Tough 2000, and then the front place here in black V5, which is the one I think I'm going to use for the visual parts, and then Tough for the internal moving parts. And I also have a button printed in clear V5, which if you were to polish and give it a top coat would come up like crystal clear, but because of how the buttons are on the Pioneer, they're frosted. So actually just by not doing that, it gives it that frosted effect already. So I need to finish printing up these pieces and then put this through a little bit of post-processing. Even though the layer lines are very, very minimal, it just needs a little bit of a sans with up to like 2000 grit and perhaps a matte clear coat to give it the matte effect that the Pioneer has. But I think with all this, we're going to be able to build something that actually does the job of what I wanted it to do and looks super cool. I do need a custom PCB made for this little slot though. So I'm going to very quickly design one and get it sent over to my friends over at PCB Way, who build all of the PCBs for this channel. It's only going to take me a moment because actually ordering things on PCBWay is super, super simple. We just need to design our board, upload it using their one-click Gerber upload, and then it'll be here in a few days, probably about the same amount of time it's going to take to finish printing all of this, put it all together, get the little bit of coding that needs doing for all the stepper motors and everything together. So hopefully it'll all come into place about the same time, which is good because I've been working on this 4 weeks now, and I have other projects I also want to do, even though this one is actually proving to be really, really fun. This is going to be awesome. Oh, it better work. The problem with this, if it doesn't work, I'm going to be so sad. So a bunch of 3D printing later, and I have a number of parts ready to build. And I've got to say, the visual parts that I've done in resin are super good looking. They're really smooth, really flat, no paint, literally just sanded down to 1200 grit and then hit with some matte primer. They look phenomenal. These are going to be fantastic. The main casing I did on an FDM printer in ABS, along with the top lid and the bottom lid for that, but the rest has all been done in tough resin. So I'm going to put all this together. It's going to be exactly the same process as when I did it in pink, white and yellow, but a bit less colourful. And then write the code in order to make the stepper motor and the servo hopefully all work as they should. Remember the golden rule in this house when it comes to writing the code: no vibe coding, just coding of vibes. And basically just cross everything and hope that I've not messed this up in any major way. Let's see. Shit. On the one hand, I've got this little motor installed, and when I press this button on my PlayStation controller, the screen goes up. And then when I press the other button in that, it goes down. So that's super cool. But as soon as I put the screen in it, it won't lift it, because it's too heavy. So now what? As far as I can tell, there's two avenues forward. Get a stronger servo, but then that like clicky click sound you can hear is the gears not quite hooking up. So maybe the geared system isn't the way, but that means I need to redesign and maybe reprint most of it. What am I going to do? I'll tell you what we're going to do. First up, breathe. Then, not get defeated by something so stupid. Rummage through all my bits and find a 20-kilogram servo. Go back and change the design so it's going to fit. Replace the gears with a direct belt connection. Reprint everything. Resand everything. Re-clear coat everything. Drink some coffee. Make some custom belt pulleys. Put it all back together. Test it. Aha! Success. Get a haircut, make some tension blocks, drink more coffee, test the stepper motor, get pissed off with the stepper motor and order a continuous servo, go to the gym, design an adapter because screw printing that big bit again, make some custom belt pulleys, write some code, take the dog for a walk, drink more coffee, get some PCBs from PCBWay, solder the components on, write some more code, test it. Good. Test the new adapter, add some stopper buttons, add extrusions that actually hit them, more coffee, more code, more gym, test the linear motion, code, test the lift motion, coffee, code, gym, coffee, code, test, coffee, code. Until we finally end up with a dull looking black box with a button on it. Yeah, it doesn't seem all that impressive in situ, especially for something that has taken 6 weeks of my life. But what does it do? Let's give it power. When we give it power, the little button lights up at the front so we can see that it's an eject. And when we press the little eject button, Riders on the Storm starts in your head as the little configuration screen from Need for Speed Underground 2 comes out, which is actually going to be used to control my underglow, interior glow, or the gauges in my car, and a lot of other things in a Need for Speed style. If you haven't seen the video about this screen, I'll put a link to it up there. But let me press the button again. Bye-bye, little screen. And that's it. That has taken me 6 weeks. Because I've never needed to make anything with servos or linear rails or anything like that before. I'm an interface designer and a user experience designer. This is all foreign to me, and it's been really interesting actually figuring it all out, especially not just buying one off the shelf and reverse engineering it, actually thinking about it step by step to figure out how this all goes together. Before we take the top off and take a look at the insides, let's just pop the Pioneer along with it and give it power, so we can see how the two look together. Pretty damn good, if you ask me. They look like they were designed to go together, which, you know, was entirely the point. And one of the big features that I had to think about when doing this was the little button, because at the moment all the button colours look the same, they're all white. But with the Pioneer, we can go into illumination and change the colour through various. So if I double press this button, it'll go through the same color cycle. So red, let's go on twice. So amber, orange, yellow, green, etc. So all the colors match, so we can keep it all consistent. I think that's really cool. And honestly, it took forever to get the color matches right, because you can't just sample the color. Then when it's in this mode, obviously they don't bang into each other, which is really important. And down this side we've got probably about 8mm gap, so plenty of space to mean that this screen isn't then hitting the head unit, but we've still got access to the volume switch over on the side, which is something that was really important. Another reason why we just couldn't use an off-the-shelf one. Bye-bye. So let me take the lid off and show you the final, inner workings, because it looks neat from the outside, but the inside's a little bit more chaotic, and I understand at the moment there's a little bit of a draw the rest of the fucking owl thing going on with this. At the back here we have the main, this is the big 20 kilo servo, which moves the screen up and down via this belt drive, which connects to a rod that runs through here. Originally, I thought there was going to be a smaller servo here and all of this would be covered, but it didn't quite work out that way. Underneath here, we have the ribbon that comes out the back of the screen, and that goes down into the bottom. And the PCB for that is underneath, which has just got some power cables coming out of it at the moment. And at the back, there's another servo, which is this one, the continuous servo, which runs this belt drive, which is attached to this block here, which runs on these 2 linear rails that keep it all nice and stable. Then perhaps my favorite bit of the whole thing is these 2 little switches. There's one here and there's one here, which this block is pushing up against, which actually just tell it when the continuous motor has reached each end of the movement. So when it's in its up mode, you press it, it runs through that servo motion, starts that until that button gets pressed, and then it stops. And then the same, and the other way, there's a button just here. So when we go out, it press that button and then do the rotation. There's a little Arduino Nano going on in here, which has got the button, the NeoPixel, the 2 servos and the front and rear buttons for the end stops, all wired into it. I will integrate all of this into a single PCB and have it made so, you know, you just put power in here and then everything will be taken care of. But it's going to take a little while. So stage 2. So I guess the only thing left to do now is put it in the car and finally have a listen to this thing. So let's do that. In the continued arc of nothing going smoothly, putting this back in the car gave me a little bit of trouble finding the space for everything now that it's much larger and there's an amp and stuff in there. But this thing's in and it looks phenomenal. The combination of the Pioneer and my custom unit, they look like they were made for being with one another, which is not surprising because they were literally made for being with one another, and is exactly why I couldn't just go and get an off-the-shelf one. It looks appropriate in the car, much better than just having a big touchscreen down there. And you know what? If I need a touchscreen, I do have one hidden away in this little cubby. That's where I get my maps and everything. But I don't need lots of them. I certainly don't need them on display all of the time. So let's just start the car, light this thing up. And immediately you get a big smile, because when all the lights come on, it means something's probably not gone horribly wrong. But lit up in amber, this thing looks phenomenal. It really fits with the rest of this interior. The big question is obviously, how cool does it look when the screen comes out? Yeah, it looks very cool. I mean, I can see a tiny bit of the silver fascia on the screen. I can fix that. We can just, you know, cover it in something black. But otherwise, that works phenomenally well. It may have taken over 6 weeks, but the result is definitely worth it. That looks super cool. And like I demoed before, if we press a couple of buttons and move through here, we can change the illumination color to, say, green, and then a couple of double presses of this button, and we match it all up. So now everything is green. Very, very cool. So my fabrication works. The stereo looks fantastic. Great. But does it have the goods sound-wise? Now, I will admit, I've obviously had to play with it a little bit in order to get the amp set up and get all the gain levels right. But we're going to put on a song, listen to how it sounds. You're probably not going to get the full effect through this DJI mic, but we'll do what we can. And it's why I've come to this IKEA car park to film this part, because I like my neighbours and I would rather not sit on my drive blasting music all day. But obviously, I can't just play any old song, because if I did play any old song, the copyright alarms are going to start flashing. So I hit up Swamp Sesh, who's made a number of original songs for me for this channel, and said, make me something that'll test my stereo. And he's like, yeah, I got you. So he made me something called All Said. And apparently it's going to put everything to the test, including the subwoofers behind me. And I haven't heard it yet, so let's see what it's like. Oh. Oh. Oh, I bet if that was up on my subs. Oh! Well, that's naughty. There's no way you're going to be able to hear that level of bass.
What a absolutely ridiculous test song. Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that that's a success. Yeah, thanks Swamp Sesh for the song. You can get the... Oh, fuck me! Jesus Christ. You can get the full song in the description. I was not expecting that. Okay, well, time to go home and finally get on with something new. The actual creation of the gauges and everything that go in this car, Need for Speed style, that are controlled by that little screen. The culmination of what, 18 months of work, finally going to happen. What do you think? Was it worth it? Was it worth ripping out that original kind of like fascia thing that I make and installing this? Is it an improvement? What do you think? And obviously, if you real engineers in the chat have a better way that you would have done this thing, please write that stuff in a comment and then delete it and keep that shit to yourself, because I don't need that kind of negativity in my life right about now. As always, I hope that something really good does happen to you today, and I will see you in the next video. Take it easy, peeps. Bye bye.